Welcome, C-suite leaders and founders, to this high-stakes explainer. Today, we're completely bypassing the fluff. We are diving straight into a hidden, almost invisible vulnerability that is absolutely destroying executive incident response. Look, if you think your firewalls are your very first line of defense, you're honestly looking in the wrong place. So let's just dive right into this.
Picture this for a second. A massive cyber breach is happening right now in your network. The alarms are blaring, your dashboards are just lighting up red, adrenaline is pumping. But instead of actively fighting the threat, your incident response team is entirely paralyzed. You really have to ask yourself, what actually kills your incident response the fastest? Well, it's not the sophistication of the malware.
It's ambiguity. It is literally just one word, but it's completely lethal. Right in the middle of a massive crisis. Your teams aren't fighting hackers, they're arguing over what a system owner actually is. They're sitting there debating what qualifies as a security incident versus a security event. It sounds completely absurd to think about, right? It's kind of like firefighters standing outside a burning building, furiously arguing over the exact definition of a thermal incident. But that is exactly what happens when your organizational policies completely lack a unified language. When the clock is ticking, ambiguity is the absolute enemy of action.
We're dealing with a massive divide here. On one side, you have this chaotic, ambiguous organization riddled with conflicting definitions across all its various policies. HR is saying one thing, IT is saying another, and legal is just completely lost. On the other side, you have a streamlined, compliant future state where everyone is operating on the exact same terms. We have to bridge this gap. We desperately need a consistent taxonomy so that when you yell, lock it down, every single department knows precisely what it is. Now, if we ground this in the official ISO 27001 framework, we're specifically talking about the ISMS Terms and Definitions document, which sits squarely under Clause 7.52. And what's absolutely crucial to understand here is that this isn't just some dry, boring administrative dictionary. No, this document is your organizational Rosetta Stone. It ensures a consistent taxonomy across every single operational policy and risk assessment you have. Without it, your entire governance structure is essentially just a giant Tower of Babel. So, the real kicker is this. Ignoring this seemingly dry document doesn't just breed, everyday confusion in the break room. The source material explicitly warns that neglecting your definitions leads straight into an auditor's trap, and honestly, far more dangerously, into total operational failure. We are talking about a full-blown security triage collapse. When your foundational language cracks, the whole response mechanism just crumbles to the ground. The source data defines the exact consequence of this, a minor non-conformance for Clause 7.5.2. It directly calls out conflicting definitions used across policies, leading to operational ambiguity during security incident triage. But please, do not let the word minor fool you just because it's written on an auditor's clipboard. During an active, malicious breach, that so-called minor ambiguity results in a devastating collapse of your security triage. You absolutely cannot afford to sit around figuring out what terms mean while your customer data is actively being exfiltrated. Think about it. When your definitions are stuck in the past, meaning you lack tech definitions for modern realities like SaaS, zero-trust architecture, or generative AI, the result is absolute triage collapse. If your incident handlers don't have a perfectly standardized definition for, say, an unauthorized generative AI data leak, they won't know how to classify it, score it, or stop it. You cannot be arguing about what SaaS even implies while your intellectual property is literally walking out the digital front door. The result is total interpretation failure across your entire enterprise. You really have to ask yourself, how much revenue is lost while your team argues over what zero trust actually means in the context of your specific network? Every single second your operational leads spend deciphering outdated terminology translates directly to extended downtime. It translates to immense regulatory risk, and ultimately it translates to massive financial hemorrhage. In a crisis, time is money, and ambiguity just burns time. But listen, it absolutely doesn't have to be this way. This explainer isn't just about pointing out how to pass an audit or trying to scare you with doomsday breach scenarios. It's about deploying a unified taxonomy blueprint. This is the structural foundation that perfectly aligns your entire organization from the top down. It transforms your policies from disconnected, vague suggestions into a cohesive, unshakable operational matrix. The immediate benefits of getting this blueprint in place are just massive. First off, it ensures consistent security definitions, meaning everyone from engineering to sales is speaking the exact same language. Second, it magically aligns all your operational policies, completely eliminating those deadly contradictions we talked about. Third, it massively speeds up your risk assessments because, well, there's no more guesswork in the methodology. And fourth, as we've really hammered home today, it prevents incident triage collapse. A unified taxonomy achieves critical operational velocity. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, great, this is going to be a 100-page nightmare to put together. Actually, scratch that, it's just 9. The source data reveals that it takes just a concise, highly targeted 9-page public guideline to establish this entire foundation. Just 9 pages to secure your entire operational architecture and bring absolute crystal clear clarity to your ISMS terms and definitions. It is incredibly efficient. However, let's be totally realistic about how you actually get those 9 pages. You essentially have 2 choices here. The traditional approach means writing all these definitions completely from scratch. That means months of wasted executive time, endless committee meetings, and exhausting drafting cycles. But look, as a startup founder or a C-suite executive, you absolutely do not have the time or the internal resources to reinvent the wheel. The other choice? Deploying a ready-made template. This gives you immediate operational clarity from day one, without any of the administrative agony.
It really all boils down to one unavoidable reality. You simply cannot secure what you cannot define. Ambiguity is the real threat. The ultimate cost of getting this wrong isn't just a little slap on the wrist from an ISO auditor. No, it is a complete operational collapse disguised as a minor terminology error. If you can't define the scope of your assets, your threats, and your response protocols, you have literally already lost the battle before the hackers even arrive.
So what's your next move to fix this right now? Head directly over to ISO 27001.institute. You can secure the ultimate, ready-made, premium template for your ISMS terms and definitions today. By implementing this specific 9-page blueprint, you will instantly eliminate operational chaos in your business. You're going to bypass months of drafting, you will align to clause 7.5.2 instantly, and you'll armor your incident response team with the exact clarity they desperately need. I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to take away from this explainer. When the next breach hits, and let's be real, it will hit, will your team be fighting the hackers, or will they be fighting over a definition? Get the template at ISO 27001.institute right now, because you need to ask yourself, can you really afford to let a missing definition cost you your entire company? Keep learning, keep standardizing, and above all, stay secure.